Hi everybody, I'm so glad you could be here with me today. There are some crazy, wild things happening in the world right now. I'm sure everyone is affected right now. And so I've had this idea to show you some tutorials over the next few weeks of things that you can make ahead of time that can be frozen for later. And all of these tutorials are using basic staples that hopefully you all have in your home already or that are easily accessible. So I hope you'll keep checking back. The first one I'm going to start out with is a basic white bread recipe, although you can substitute whole wheat flour and make it a whole wheat bread. This does not use dairy or eggs, so it's vegan, and you can substitute gluten-free flour, no problem, and it should work out just fine. I'm also going to show you two different ways that you can incorporate some dried fruit and some grains and oats into it if you want to add more of a healthier element. So let's get started. All right, so all you're going to need to start with this is some warm water and some yeast. Now I want to talk about the different kinds of yeast because I get a lot of questions about this. The easiest yeast to use is the instant yeast. You don't have to let it activate. It will work every single time. It's what I use. It's my go-to. There is also, if that's not available, there is also the active dry yeast. This just means you need to activate it in some warm water. It needs to be about 110 degrees. I've never used a thermometer, I've just kind of used a finger test, but if it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. If it's too cold, it won't activate. So this one's a little more tricky. And then there's a third kind that I've never used. It's called rapid rise, and that just means that you can form your dough right away and it only needs one rise before you bake it. But today I'm going to stick with the instant yeast because it's a no-fail and it works every time. Okay, we're going to start with 2 to 2 1/4 cups of warm water. Does not have to be exact. And to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of my instant yeast. Just going to have just enough, yay. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to stir that in a little bit, and also I'm going to stir in 4 tablespoons of sugar. If you don't have sugar, honey will totally work, or you can do 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm just going to use the sugar today. You just want to dissolve the sugar in there. There we go. Give that a little stir. Now, if this was the active dry yeast, I would set this aside for 5 to 10 minutes until it becomes foamy and bubbly and let it activate. But because it's the instant yeast, I can go ahead and put it in my bowl right away and it will work. But I'm just gonna let the sugar dissolve for just a minute in that warm water. I'm going to start with the whisk attachment. You can use a hand mixer and you can even do this by hand. I've had people tell me they've done it all by hand. It uses a little more elbow grease, but it will work. Whisk attachment, and I am going to, in my bowl, after let's see, I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of salt. Teaspoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of oil. Any kind of oil will work. I'm using olive oil today. And set the oil aside because you will need it at a later step. And then I'm going to add the water, sugar, and yeast carefully into here. Want to make sure you get all of that out of the bowl. And then flour, that's all you need. So it's just water, yeast, sugar or honey, salt, oil, and flour. I'm going to start with, I'm going to put 2 cups of flour in here with the whisk attachment and get everything mixed before I change to my bread hook. So I'm I'm gonna start with 2 cups. Okay, just start on slow and let that do its thing. All right, at this stage, I'm going to scrape my bowl down and switch to my bread hook. And I'm just gonna add my flour a little bit at a time. You're going to need 6 to 7 cups of flour. All right, this is the 3rd cup. Okay, at this stage, I just want to talk about the consistency that you're going to want to look for. Obviously, this is very sticky. It's staying on the hook, not falling off. I wouldn't be able to handle that. But after about 5.5 cups of flour, I'm going to add it in more gradually. Because you don't want to add too much flour. That'll make a really tough, dense bread. I'm going to go ahead and add 6 in because that was quite sticky. Let it come together before I decide how much more flour I'm going to add. Okay, it's definitely coming together more when it's getting easier to handle. However, it's still a bit sticky and there's still some stuck to the bowl. It will all pull away from the sides of the bowl and completely fall off the hook, and then you'll know it's ready. But it's still pretty sticky, so I'm gonna add just a little bit at a time. So I've got the 6 cups in there. Here's 7, but I don't think I'll need all of it, but we'll see. Kind of just depends on the humidity, the temperature of your kitchen. It's variable every time you'll make it. Okay. That is 6.5. We'll see what that does. Okay. You can see inside the bowl, it is completely clean on the bottom, and this will fall right off the dough hook, and I can handle it no problem. Now at this point, you can take it out and hand knead it, or you can let the machine do the work. I'll show you a little bit of both. I'll let the machine go for a couple minutes. Okay, let's take a test, a gluten test. This is how you know when the dough is ready to start rising. I always do the window pane test. I'll get a piece of dough and hold it up to the window, and I should be able to see through the dough before it breaks. Ooh, that's already really good. It's developing the gluten. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of hand kneading, because I think we could just do a little bit more. There we go. Okay, to hand knead, I'm just gonna get a little bit of flour and just work the dough, just pulling, pushing, turning it over. See, so this can be done all by hand. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can use a hand mixer until you've added enough flour to be able to handle the dough, and then you just knead it. Okay, I think we're gonna stop there. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this today. So I'm gonna divide my dough in half, and half of it I'm just gonna leave plain. It's just gonna be a basic white sandwich bread. So I'm gonna take that one. I've got 2 bowls here. All right, so for this bread, I'm gonna get a little bit of oil and like a tablespoon or a little more. And I'm gonna get this into a nice round ball. And I'm gonna coat this with oil. Just is gonna, give it a nice shine. I'm gonna coat that with oil before I let it do the first rise. I'll cover that with plastic in a minute, but Let me show you what I'm gonna do with this other half of the bread. Now, anything works here. You can just be creative and try a lot of different things. I've got some dried fruit here. I've done dried apricots before, but today I'm gonna do craisins, the dried cranberries. Raisins would work. I also have some chia seeds that I'm gonna sprinkle in here. And I have some flax seeds. This is just good for extra fiber. And I'm gonna do some whole grain oats, the whole oats. Start with a little bit. It's gonna be kind of, you can add more as you go. And now I'm just gonna work all of this into the dough. And it's gonna be a mess. That's okay, because the dough is gonna kind of pick it up as you go along. Last time I made it, it looked like I had so much fruit and seeds in there, but then when I baked it, it actually wasn't that much. So go ahead and be generous about putting everything in there. It's just kind of a multi-grain, just a different texture bread. My kids liked the white bread better, but my husband and I liked this bread better. So you can just kind of pick up those extra pieces and just keep kneading until you've got all the fruit and seeds. You could put pecans or walnuts in here. That would totally work. That would be really good. Sunflower seeds would be really good too. I just didn't have time to go to the store. And if your stores are like my stores right now, they are nuts. They're crazy. There's lines out the door and there's nothing on the shelves. So I just am working with what I have had already in my home. But sunflower seeds would be really good. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and form this into a ball. Get a little bit of oil, kind of roll it all around. Now just be aware that adding all these extra ingredients in here will inhibit the rise and the yeast just a little. So this one will not rise as much as this one if you're doing both kinds. Just know that it's still fine, it'll still be good. I'm gonna cover this with plastic and I'm gonna set this aside in a warm place. I have a sun patch in my windowsill, or you can leave it on your counter, it doesn't matter, for about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. All right, see, look at my beautiful dough, so pretty. This one rose just a hair more than this one, but this one is still fantastic. I'm gonna show you two different ways that you can shape this bread. If you have loaf pans and you want it to be in a traditional loaf, go ahead and use those, that's fantastic, but I'm gonna show you a way to freeform the dough, and that will totally work as well. So, first things first though, I'm gonna turn my dough out. I've got my flour here. I'm gonna turn my dough out, turn it over. Try to handle it as little as possible because you wanna keep the shape of it in a loaf shape as much as possible. I'm gonna divide it in half as equally as I can. And first I'm gonna get my loaf pans ready to go. I like to, just to make sure it comes out easily, I like to spread some oil around the bottom. I'll get like a paper towel or a napkin, and I'll just make sure it's nicely coated along the bottom corners and sides of the pan. Put some there too. You just want to, and then just to be safe, I'll still do that. But you probably don't have to. But nothing is worse than going to all this work and it doesn't come out of the pan. So for me, to be safe. Okay, now we're just gonna work on kind of like shaping this into loaf form. This will make 2 loaves. It looks small now, but last time I made this, it rose so big in the oven I couldn't believe it. So trial and error, I'm gonna maybe have this rise a little bit less than I did last time. It still tasted like delicious, but you want to get it as square or rectangle as you can. Again, just don't handle it too much. Get it in the pans. You're gonna cover it again with plastic and let it rise until it's double in size. Now for the free-form loaves, turn my dough out. Oh, doesn't that look so good? It looks so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna cut this in half. And then just as much as I can, I'm gonna shape it into like a round loaf here. Kind of a little flat in the middle. You want to make sure it gets cooked all the way through, but that's going to be, put it on one side of the tray and then do the other one. And you're going to cover this and let this one rise as well. Probably about 20 to 30 minutes, I'm thinking. All right, just cover them loosely with plastic because they're gonna rise and you don't want the plastic to inhibit that at all. So just very loosely, we're covering the pans. And again, I'm gonna just kind of put it in a warm space in my kitchen. Okay, my friends, I've got my risen bread dough here and we're ready to bake it. We are going to put it in a 350-degree oven. Check it at about 24-25 minutes. What you're looking for is a nice golden brown on top, fairly deep in color, because you want to make sure that bread dough is cooked all the way through. So we're gonna put these in. Okay, I have pulled these out of the oven. You can see a really nice golden brown on top and bottom. You can kind of tell they're done. When you tap them, it has like a hollowy sound. But let's cut into this and see what we've got here. If you want to freeze this for later, ooh yes, look, you can see there's no dough in there. It's all cooked through. If you want to save this for later, you're going to just want to double wrap it in plastic. Double wrap it if you want it to last a long time, or you can just wrap it in some plastic or put it in a baggie and keep it in the freezer for a couple weeks, even up to 4 weeks, or you can just store it at room temperature as you eat it, which is what we do because we can't stay away from the fresh loaves of bread. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I hope it's helpful. I hope you are staying safe and healthy. Keep your distance, wash your hands. Let's just get through this coronavirus crisis that we're all experiencing right now, and hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you can make it to the store and get some ingredients and get everything you need. And let me know what you think.